What happens when you put two future governors, a furious Belgian kickboxer, and the most violent actor in Hollywood together in the Mexican jungle? You get one of the most chaotic productions ever filmed, and one of the greatest action movies of all time. But here's what nobody tells you. The creature you see on screen? That wasn't the original Predator. The iconic handshake? Completely improvised. And Jean-Claude Van Damme, he got fired 3 times in 1 week, smashed a $20,000 costume on the ground, told the producer to kiss his balls, and walked off set forever. This is the story of Predator, where egos were bigger than muscles, secrets were kept at 3 a.m., and Arnold Schwarzenegger pulled off one of the most calculated psychological warfare moves in film history. What you're about to discover will change how you see this movie forever.
What the hell are you?
Number 1. Arnold Schwarzenegger cheated Jesse Ventura with a tape measure and got away with it. Jesse Ventura thought he had the biggest arms on set. He was wrong, but not because Arnold's were actually bigger. Arnold had rigged the game before it even started. Here's what happened. Ventura, the former Navy SEAL and professional wrestler, arrived on set with massive confidence. 20-inch arms, pure muscle, and he knew it. Arnold noticed immediately that Ventura was walking around flexing, measuring his own biceps, making comments. So Arnold did what Arnold does best. He played mind games. He pulled aside the wardrobe department and gave them specific instructions. When they measured Jesse's arms, they were supposed to add an inch to the actual measurement and tell him the inflated number. When they measured Arnold's arms, they'd tell him the real number, but make sure Jesse overheard a number that was slightly smaller. Ventura fell for it completely. He started bragging that his arms were bigger than Arnold's. He bet Arnold a case of expensive champagne that his biceps were larger. Arnold accepted the bet with a smile. On the day of the official measurement, in front of the entire cast and crew, the wardrobe supervisor took out the tape measure. Jesse went first. 20 inches. He was grinning. Then Arnold stepped up. 23 inches. Jesse's face dropped. He'd lost the bet by 3 full inches. He had to hand over the champagne in front of everyone, completely humiliated. He thought maybe the measurement was wrong. Maybe Arnold had pumped up right before. Maybe it was the angle. But here's the thing. Arnold had been playing him from day one. The wardrobe department later admitted to Jesse that Arnold had paid them to lie about the measurements from the beginning. Jesse had never had bigger arms. Arnold had manipulated the entire situation just to get in his head. Why would Arnold do this? Because that's how he operated. He knew that confidence and psychology mattered just as much as actual strength on a set full of bodybuilders and tough guys. By making Jesse doubt himself, Arnold established dominance. It was calculated, ruthless, and it worked. Jesse Ventura only found out the truth years later. By then, Arnold was already governor of California. Ventura was governor of Minnesota. And that case of champagne? Arnold never even drank it. He gave it to the crew. Number 2. Carl Weathers was waking up at 3 a.m. to train in secret, because nobody wanted to look like they were trying. The Predator set had an unspoken rule: never let anyone see you working out. If you looked too good, you had to pretend it was effortless. Showing effort was weakness. So everyone cheated. Carl Weathers was the worst offender, or the smartest, depending on how you see it. Every single day he'd wake up at 3 in the morning, sneak out of his hotel, and train for 2 hours in complete darkness. Weights, cardio, pull-ups, the whole routine. Then he'd shower, get dressed, grab a coffee, and show up on set at 6 a.m. looking casual, like he'd just rolled out of bed. Jesse Ventura caught on after a week. He noticed Carl's shoulders were getting bigger, but Carl never went to the gym, so Jesse started watching him. One morning at 3:15 a.m., he saw Carl walking toward the jungle carrying dumbbells. Jesse couldn't believe it. He started laughing. They were all doing the same thing. Ventura's trick? He'd show up to set early, do push-ups until he was exhausted, then spray himself with a water bottle. When people arrived, he'd be sweating naturally from the heat. Everyone thought his physique was genetic. It wasn't. He was doing 500 push-ups a day in secret. But Arnold took it to another level. He didn't just work out in secret. He sent an entire gym to Mexico. He had a shipping container filled with weights, benches, cables and machines delivered to the location. He set it up in a private building and trained there every morning at 5 a.m. Nobody was invited. Nobody even knew where it was. When Carl found out about Arnold's private gym, he tried to get access. Arnold said no. It became this weird status thing. If you trained with Arnold, you were in the inner circle. If you didn't, you weren't. Most of the cast never even saw inside that gym. The irony? They were all pretending not to care about fitness while secretly obsessing over it. It created this bizarre atmosphere where everyone was lying to each other about the most obvious thing on set. They were bodybuilders and athletes pretending to be casual about their bodies. Years later, Carl Weathers admitted in an interview that the 3 a.m. workouts were exhausting. He said he wishes he'd just been honest about it, but the culture on set made that impossible. If you admitted you were trying hard, you looked desperate. So everyone played the game, and everyone lied. Number 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme passed out 3 times in 1 week and got fired on the spot. Jean-Claude Van Damme was the original Predator. He lasted 6 days. And in those 6 days, he fainted 3 separate times, nearly died from dehydration, and got fired while hanging upside down from a crane. Here's what they didn't tell him. The Predator suit was bright red, heat-absorbing red, and it weighed over 80 pounds. They were filming in the jungles of Mexico, where temperatures hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit with 90% humidity. Van Damme was essentially wearing a sauna while doing backflips. The first time he passed out, it was during a rehearsal. He was supposed to jump from a tree, land, and disappear into the jungle. He jumped, landed, took 3 steps, and collapsed face first into the mud. The crew thought he was acting. He wasn't. They had to drag him to a medic tent and pump him full of fluids. Joel Silver, the producer, came over and said, "Jean-Claude, you pass out one more time, you're done. I'm not joking." Van Damme nodded. He understood. He went back to set. 2 days later, he fainted again. This time during an actual take. The cameras were rolling. Arnold and Carl were running through the jungle. The Predator was supposed to chase them, and Van Damme just dropped mid-run like someone had shot him. Silver was furious. He pulled Van Damme aside and said, one more time, and you're off this movie." Van Damme promised it wouldn't happen again. He drank more water, he took salt pills, he tried everything, but the suit was impossible. On day 6, they had him suspended from wires for an overhead shot. He was hanging upside down in full costume, waiting for the scene to start. He passed out while hanging there. Just went limp. The crew saw him dangling unconscious and started yelling. They lowered him down, got him out of the suit, revived him with smelling salts. Bill Duke, one of the actors, was standing nearby. He said Van Damme's skin was gray. He looked dead. Joel Silver walked over, looked at Van Damme on the ground, and said, "You're done. Get him out of here. He's fired." Van Damme tried to argue. Silver didn't care. He told the AD to book Van Damme a flight back to Los Angeles that night. Van Damme left Mexico the next morning and never came back. Bill Duke confirmed this story decades later, saying the dehydration was real and dangerous. Van Damme could have actually died in that suit. The studio had to halt production for 2 weeks while they figured out what to do. They'd already shot footage with Van Damme. All of it was unusable. The Predator looked ridiculous. They had to start over from scratch. And Joel Silver swore he'd never work with Van Damme again. Number 4. The entire movie started as a joke about Rocky fighting aliens. Predator wasn't supposed to exist. It started as a sarcastic comment in a Hollywood bar, and somehow it turned into one of the most profitable action franchises ever made. In 1985, Rocky IV came out. Sylvester Stallone had Rocky fighting a massive Russian boxer named Ivan Drago. The movie made hundreds of millions of dollars. People loved it. But screenwriters Jim and John Thomas were sitting in a bar in Los Angeles, watching people line up for tickets, and one of them said, "Rocky's fought everyone. Who's left? Aliens?" They both laughed, but then they stopped laughing. That was actually a good idea. They went home and started writing. The original script was called Hunter. It was about a special forces team on a mission in Central America who get hunted by an extraterrestrial trophy hunter. The alien was invisible, technologically advanced, and completely ruthless. It was Rocky versus Apollo Creed, but in the jungle, with lasers. When the script got to Arnold Schwarzenegger, he loved it, but he wanted changes. The original script had Arnold as a solo operative, a lone warrior type. Arnold said no. He wanted a team. He wanted camaraderie, banter, guys with different skills and personalities. He wanted Magnificent Seven in the jungle. So they rewrote it. They added Carl Weathers, Jesse Ventura, Bill Duke, Shane Black, Sonny Landham, and Richard Chavs. Each character had a specialty: weapons expert, tracker, tech guy, communications. It created dynamic interactions instead of just Arnold talking to himself for 90 minutes. The other big change? The setting. The original script had the alien hunting people in Africa during a safari. It was literally a big game hunter from space-stalking humans for sport on an African reserve. Arnold thought that was boring. He pushed for Central America, guerrilla warfare, political tension. He wanted it to feel like a real military operation gone wrong. The Thomas brothers rewrote the whole thing. They kept the alien hunter concept, but made it about mercenaries in a hot zone, not tourists on vacation. It turned the movie from a gimmick into something with actual stakes. And Arnold was right. It worked. The joke about Rocky fighting aliens turned into Predator. And 37 years later, the franchise is still going. Jim and John Thomas made tens of millions of dollars from that one sarcastic comment in a bar. Sometimes the best ideas start as jokes. Number 5. Shane Black was hired as a writer, not an actor, but he ended up in the movie anyway. Shane Black is one of the most successful screenwriters in Hollywood. He wrote Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Iron Man 3. But in 1986, he was just a 24-year-old writer for hire, and Joel Silver brought him to Mexico for one reason: insurance. Silver didn't trust the Predator script. It had been rewritten multiple times. Scenes weren't working. Dialogue felt flat. He knew they'd need emergency rewrites during production, so he hired Shane Black as a full-time on-set writer. His job was to sit in a trailer, watch dailies, and fix anything that wasn't working. But there was a problem. Shane Black was young, skinny, and looked like he'd never held a gun in his life. If he was just sitting in a trailer all day, the cast would wonder who he was and why he was there. It would create weird tension. So Joel Silver had an idea. Put him in the movie. They cast Shane as Hawkins, the radio operator. He had a few lines, mostly jokes. His character's whole personality was telling bad one-liners to annoy the rest of the team. And those one-liners? Shane was writing them himself, every single day. A lot of the most quotable dialogue in Predator came from Shane Black. "I ain't got time to bleed. You're one ugly motherfucker. Get to the chopper." He was rewriting scenes in the morning and acting in them by the afternoon. The cast didn't even realize he was a writer at first. They thought he was just an actor who happened to be funny. It wasn't until halfway through production that Carl Weathers figured it out. He saw Shane in the trailer, typing on a laptop with script pages spread everywhere. Carl asked what he was doing. Shane said, "I'm fixing tomorrow's scene." Carl was shocked. Arnold knew from the beginning. That's why he treated Shane differently than the other actors. He'd ask Shane for input on his lines, let him suggest changes to the blocking, even let him sit in on meetings with John McTiernan. Shane was basically a co-director without the title. Joel Silver's plan worked. If the script fell apart, they had Shane right there to save it. And 31 years later, Shane Black directed The Predator in 2018. The guy who played the weakest character in the original became the director of the sequel. That's a full-circle Hollywood story if there ever was one. Number 6. Van Damme saw the Predator head, smashed it on the ground, and told Joel Silver to kiss his balls. Before Jean-Claude Van Damme got fired for fainting, he had one final meltdown that sealed his fate forever. And it involved a $20,000 monster head getting destroyed in a fit of rage. The original Predator design was terrible. It looked like a bug-eyed duck with mandibles. The head was this weird red insectoid thing with a long neck and a beak-like mouth. It looked more like a Power Rangers villain than an apex predator from outer space. But the studio had already spent a fortune building it, so they were committed. Van Damme hated it from day one. Every time he put the suit on, he'd complain. He'd say, "This looks stupid. Nobody's going to be scared of this." The crew told him to shut up and do his job. He kept complaining. One afternoon they were rehearsing a scene where the Predator's face would be revealed. Van Damme was standing off to the side watching them position the animatronic head on a stand. He walked over, picked it up, looked at it closely and said, "This is a joke, right?" The effects supervisor said, "That's the design. We spent months on it." Van Damme stared at him. Then he looked at Joel Silver, who was standing nearby. Then he looked back at the head, and he spiked it into the ground like a football. The head exploded. Foam, wires, electronics, everything shattered. The effects crew started yelling. Joel Silver's face went red. He marched over to Van Damme and screamed, "You just destroyed $20,000! You're never going to work in Hollywood again." Van Damme looked him dead in the eye and said, "Kiss my balls." Then he walked off set, went back to his trailer, packed his bags, and left. He didn't wait to get fired. He didn't apologize. He just quit. The crew stood there in stunned silence, staring at the destroyed Predator head on the ground. Joel Silver banned Van Damme from the Fox lot. He told other producers not to hire him. He trashed him in interviews. For years, Van Damme's career suffered because of that moment. But here's the thing. Van Damme was right. The head was terrible. When they replaced him and redesigned the Predator with Stan Winston, it became iconic. The bug duck design would have ruined the movie. So Van Damme destroyed a piece of Hollywood history, told one of the most powerful producers in the industry to kiss his balls, and walked away. And decades later, people still quote that line. That's the most Van Damme thing that's ever happened. Number 7. Sonny Landham had a bodyguard, but not to protect him, to protect everyone else. Every movie has insurance requirements. If you're doing stunts, you need a stunt coordinator. If you're using explosives, you need a pyrotechnician. But Predator had something unique. The insurance company required a bodyguard for one of the actors, not to keep him safe, but to keep him from hurting other people. Sonny Landham played Billy the Tracker. He was 6'4", built like a tank, and had a reputation for extreme violence. He'd been arrested multiple times for assault. He'd been kicked off sets for fighting with crew members. He had a genuine anger problem, and everyone in Hollywood knew it. When Fox hired him for Predator, their insurance company reviewed his history and said, "We will not insure this production unless Sonny Landham has a full-time bodyguard." Fox thought they meant a bodyguard to protect him from fans or stalkers. The insurance company clarified, "No, a bodyguard to protect your cast and crew from him." So Fox hired a professional bodyguard whose sole job was to follow Sonny around 24 hours a day and make sure he didn't attack anyone. If Sonny got angry, the bodyguard would step in. If Sonny started arguing, the bodyguard would defuse it. If Sonny looked like he was about to throw a punch, the bodyguard would physically restrain him. This actually happened multiple times during production. Sonny got into heated arguments with Jesse Ventura at least 3 times. Both of them were tough guys with military backgrounds. Both had massive egos. The bodyguard had to step between them more than once to prevent an actual fistfight. Arnold stayed away from Sonny. He was friendly, but cautious. He knew Sonny's reputation and didn't want to provoke him. Carl Weathers did the same. They treated him respectfully but kept their distance. Only Jesse engaged directly, and that almost ended badly several times. The craziest part? Sonny knew exactly why the bodyguard was there. He wasn't stupid, and it made him even angrier. He'd make comments like, "They think I'm an animal. They think I need a leash." The bodyguard would just nod and say, "I'm here to do my job." And somehow, that worked. Sonny Landham's bodyguard stayed with him for the entire production. 60 days, around the clock. That bodyguard probably prevented multiple lawsuits, injuries, and possibly even a murder. To this day, Sonny Landham is the only actor in Hollywood history who had a bodyguard hired specifically to protect people from him. That's a legacy nobody wants. Number 8. Peter Cullen used his Optimus Prime voice for the Predator and got paid almost nothing. The Predator's voice is terrifying. Those guttural clicks, the deep growls, the way it mimics human speech, it's one of the most iconic creature sounds in film history. And the guy who created it? He's the same person who voiced Optimus Prime in Transformers. And he did the whole thing in one afternoon for minimum wage. Peter Cullen is a legend in voice acting. He's been the voice of Optimus Prime since 1984. But in 1987, he was just a working voice actor, taking whatever jobs came his way. When the Predator sound team called him, they said, "We need alien creature noises. Can you come in for a session?" Peter showed up at the studio with no preparation. He didn't know what the Predator looked like. He hadn't read the script. He just knew it was a movie about a jungle hunter. The sound designer played him some temp tracks, random animal noises, clicking sounds, low rumbles, and said, "Can you do something like this but scarier?" Peter thought about it for a second. Then he used the same vocal technique he used for Optimus Prime, a deep resonant chest voice that sounds mechanical and organic at the same time. But instead of speaking clearly, he added clicks, grunts, and inhuman inflections. He made it sound like something that could mimic human speech but didn't understand it. The clicking sound? That came from a story Peter heard about a dying crab. When crabs die, their claws make a clicking noise as the muscles spasm. Peter recreated that sound with his mouth and throat. It's disturbing because it's biological, not digital. Your brain knows it's organic, and that makes it scarier. The session lasted about 3 hours. Peter recorded growls, clicks, roars, and the famous mimicry lines where the Predator repeats things the humans say. "Run! Get to the chopper!" That's Peter Cullen doing an alien impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He got paid scale, minimum union wage for voice actors. At the time, that was around $500. No royalties, no back end, no residuals, just a flat fee for 3 hours of work. He wasn't even credited in the original theatrical release. His name only appeared in later editions after people started asking who did the voice. Peter Cullen created one of the most recognizable creature voices in cinema history, got paid barely anything, and moved on to the next job. He didn't even know Predator would be a hit. He just showed up, did the work, and left. That's the reality of voice acting. You create something iconic, and most people never even know your name. Number 9. Van Damme. Thought the Predator should fight with kickboxing, and got fired for it. Jean-Claude Van Damme didn't just get fired for fainting. He also got fired because he refused to move like an alien. He wanted the Predator to fight like a kickboxer, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Van Damme's whole career was built on martial arts. He was a champion kickboxer before he became an actor. When they cast him as the Predator, he saw it as an opportunity to show off his skills. He figured, why would an advanced alien warrior not know martial arts? It made sense to him. So during rehearsals, he started doing spinning kicks, high splits, jump kicks, all his signature moves. The director, John McTiernan, watched for a minute, then stopped him. He said, "Jean-Claude, the Predator doesn't fight like that. It's a hunter. It uses weapons and stealth." Van Damme disagreed. He said, "But this is my vision. The Predator should be a fighter. It should do martial arts." McTiernan said, "That's not what we hired you for." Van Damme kept doing it anyway. Every take, he'd throw in a spinning kick or a jumping split. McTiernan would yell cut, explain again that the Predator doesn't move like that, and Van Damme would nod, then do it again on the next take. Joel Silver got involved. He pulled Van Damme aside and said, "You need to follow direction. Stop doing kickboxing. The Predator moves like an animal, not a martial artist." Van Damme said, "This is my interpretation." Silver said, "This isn't your movie. Do what you're told or you're gone." Van Damme didn't listen. On one of his final days on set, he was supposed to stalk Arnold through the jungle. Simple stalking, slow movements, predatory behavior. Instead, he did a flying kick off a tree branch. McTiernan lost it. He called Joel Silver over. Silver called Joel Hynek, the unit production manager. Hynek walked up to Van Damme and said, "You're done. Pack your stuff. You're fired." Van Damme tried to argue. He said the Predator needed personality, needed style. Hynek didn't care. He escorted Van Damme off set personally and told him not to come back. Years later, Van Damme admitted in interviews that he was young and stubborn. He said he regrets not listening. But at the time, he genuinely believed kickboxing would make the Predator cooler. It didn't. It made him look ridiculous. And when Kevin Peter Hall took over and moved like an actual Predator, low, stalking, animalistic, it worked perfectly. Van Damme's insistence on kickboxing cost him what could have been a breakthrough role. Instead, he got fired, humiliated, and written out of Hollywood history. Sometimes your vision is just wrong. Number 10. 2 future governors were in the same movie. and nobody saw it coming. In 1987, two actors stood side by side in Predator, covered in mud, holding rifles, with no idea that they'd both become governors of major U.S. states. That's one of the strangest political coincidences in film history. Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California in 2003. Everyone knows this. He served 2 terms, from 2003 to 2011, and became one of the most famous politicians in America despite being born in Austria. But what people forget is that Jesse Ventura, who played Blaine in Predator, became governor of Minnesota in 1999. Ventura wasn't just an actor. He was a Navy SEAL, a professional wrestler, and a political independent who shocked the entire country by winning an election nobody thought he could win. He ran as a third-party candidate, outspent by both Democrats and Republicans, and won anyway. He served 1 term and refused to run for re-election because he hated politics. So here's the timeline. In 1987, 2 guys who fought a space alien together in Mexico went on to become governors. One of a Republican stronghold, the other of a Democratic-leaning state. One stayed in politics for 8 years, the other for 4. And both of them started as bodybuilders who became action stars. The weirdest part? Both of them later became independents. Arnold was a Republican when he got elected, but he governed more like a centrist and eventually distanced himself from the party. Ventura was an independent from the start and spent his entire term criticizing both parties. They both proved you didn't need traditional political experience to win major elections. You just needed name recognition and charisma. And Jesse Ventura used Predator in his campaign. One of his slogans was, "I ain't got time to bleed," which is his most famous line from the movie. He put it on campaign posters. He referenced it in speeches. He turned a throwaway action movie line into a political identity. And it worked. This is the only time in cinema history where 2 actors from the same movie both became governors. It's never happened before, and it probably won't happen again. Predator isn't just an action movie. It's a political launching pad. And nobody saw it coming. Number 11, Kevin Peter Hall played chess in a 200-pound suit and beat everyone except Arnold. Kevin Peter Hall was 7'2". He was the only person who could physically play the Predator after Van Damme got fired. But wearing the suit wasn't just uncomfortable. It was psychological torture. So to stay sane, he played chess with the cast. And he destroyed almost everyone. The Predator suit weighed over 200 pounds with all the equipment. It had animatronic parts, hydraulics, cooling tubes, and a massive helmet. Once Kevin was inside, he couldn't take it off without help. That meant he was trapped in that suit for hours at a time, sometimes in 100-degree heat. To pass the time between takes, Kevin would sit in a chair, still fully suited, and play chess. The cast thought it was hilarious. This 7-foot-tall alien creature sitting at a folding table in the jungle, moving chess pieces with clawed hands, beating everyone who challenged him. Carl Weathers played him 3 times. Lost all 3. Jesse Ventura played him twice. Lost both. Bill Duke tried once, got checkmated in 12 moves, and never played again. Kevin was legitimately good at chess. He'd been playing since he was a kid, and being stuck in the suit gave him plenty of time to think through strategies. The only person who beat him? Arnold Schwarzenegger. They played 1 game, and Arnold won. Kevin demanded a rematch. Arnold said no. He walked away. Never played again. Kevin spent the rest of production trying to get Arnold to play him again. Arnold refused. He knew better than to risk his winning record. But here's the saddest part of Kevin Peter Hall's story. He also played the helicopter pilot at the end of Predator. When Dutch gets rescued, the guy flying the helicopter, that's Kevin. He shot his scenes as the Predator, took off the suit, put on a flight helmet, and filmed the rescue scene the same day. He's the only actor in the movie who plays 2 roles. Kevin Peter Hall died in 1991 from AIDS-related complications. He was only 35 years old. He contracted HIV from a blood transfusion after a car accident. He never got to see Predator become the cultural phenomenon it is today. He played one of the most iconic movie monsters ever created, beat almost everyone at chess while wearing a 200-pound suit, and died way too young. That's a tragedy. Number 12. Arnold forced random crew members to work out at 5 a.m. and screamed at them the entire time. Arnold Schwarzenegger's private gym wasn't just for him. It was a weapon of psychological warfare, and he used it to torture random crew members by forcing them to work out at 5 in the morning while he yelled at them in German. Here's how it worked. Arnold would wake up at 4:30 a.m., walk around the set and pick someone at random. Didn't matter who. Camera operator, sound mixer, production assistant. He'd knock on their trailer and say, "You're training with me. Let's go." Most people couldn't say no. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger. If he tells you to work out with him, you work out with him. So they'd drag themselves out of bed, stumble to his private gym, and immediately regret everything. Arnold didn't go easy on anyone. He'd load up the weights, demonstrate the exercise, and then make you do it. If you struggled, he'd start yelling. Not in English, in German. Nobody knew what he was saying, but it sounded terrifying. He'd get right in your face, veins popping out of his neck, screaming in a language you didn't understand. Some crew members started hiding. They'd hear Arnold walking around at 5 a.m. and they'd turn off their lights, lock their doors, and pretend they weren't there. It became this paranoid game where people were genuinely afraid of getting chosen. The worst part? Arnold thought it was hilarious. He knew people were hiding from him. He'd laugh about it during the day, telling other cast members which crew members had tried to avoid him. It created this atmosphere where everyone was constantly on edge, wondering if they'd be next. Carl Weathers said it was the most intense set he'd ever been on, not because of the action but because of Arnold's morning workouts. He said some crew members were more afraid of Arnold's gym than they were of the explosions and stunts. That's how much psychological pressure he created. And here's the thing. Arnold didn't need to do this. It wasn't in his contract. Nobody asked him to train the crew. He did it because he enjoyed it. He liked pushing people past their limits. He liked seeing who would quit and who would push through. It was a test, and most people failed. To this day, crew members from Predator still talk about Arnold's 5 a.m. workouts. Some of them say it was the hardest thing they've ever done. Others say it changed their lives and they stayed in shape because of it. Either way, nobody forgot it. Arnold made sure of that. Number 13. Arnold's iconic cigar was fake, added digitally because you can't smoke in a helicopter. One of the most iconic shots in Predator is Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting in the helicopter at the beginning of the movie, smoking a cigar, looking like the biggest badass on the planet. Except that cigar? It wasn't lit. The smoke? Added in post-production. The whole thing was fake. Here's why. You can't light a cigar inside a helicopter. It's a massive safety hazard. The fumes, the smoke, the open flame, all of it is dangerous when you're flying. So Arnold held an unlit cigar in his mouth, and the visual effects team added the glowing ember and smoke trails later. But the funny part? That cigar obsession was real. Arnold smoked cigars constantly on set, just not in the helicopter. In between takes, he'd light up massive Cuban cigars and walk around offering them to the cast. Most people said no. Carl Weathers didn't smoke. Jesse Ventura didn't either. But Arnold kept offering. Eventually, Carl Weathers tried one. Arnold gave him a premium Cuban cigar, showed him how to cut it, how to light it, how to smoke it properly. Carl loved it. Within a week, Carl was smoking cigars every day. He got completely hooked. Carl Weathers wasn't a smoker before Predator. He was a former NFL player, stayed in shape, avoided cigarettes his whole life. But Arnold turned him into a cigar enthusiast. After the movie wrapped, Arnold sent Carl an entire box of Cuban cigars as a gift. Carl said it was one of the best and worst gifts he'd ever received. Best because they were amazing cigars, worst because he couldn't stop smoking them. So Arnold's iconic cigar moment in the helicopter, completely fabricated. But his real-life cigar addiction, that was genuine. And he spread it to Carl Weathers like a contagious disease. To this day, Carl still smokes cigars occasionally, and he blames Arnold for it. The cigar became such an iconic part of Arnold's image that it showed up in almost every action movie he made afterward. Commando, Predator, Total Recall, there's always a cigar. It became his signature move, even though half the time it was fake. That's Hollywood for you. Number 14. The stuntman broke his leg. Doing the same stunt Van Damme refused, and Van Damme was right. Remember when Jean-Claude Van Damme said he'd break his legs if he did a certain stunt? The producers didn't believe him. They brought in a professional stuntman to prove Van Damme wrong. The stuntman broke his leg. Exactly the way Van Damme predicted. Here's what happened. There was a scene where the Predator had to jump from a high tree branch onto the ground, about 20 feet down, and land in a combat stance. Van Damme looked at the setup and said, "I'll break my legs if I do that. It's too high." The stunt coordinator said, "You're a martial artist. You know how to fall." Van Damme said, "Not in a 200-pound suit. My knees will shatter." The producer didn't believe him. He thought Van Damme was being dramatic, looking for an excuse not to do the stunt. So they called in a professional stunt performer who specialized in high falls. The guy looked at the setup, looked at the suit, and said he could do it. They rigged him up. They padded the landing zone. They did a safety check. The cameras rolled. The stuntman jumped. He landed perfectly and immediately screamed in pain. His leg buckled. Compound fracture. The bone broke clean through. They had to airlift him to a hospital in Mexico City. He needed surgery. He was off work for 6 months. The production tried to bury the story. They didn't want anyone knowing that a professional stuntman got seriously injured doing something they'd pressured an actor to do. But people on set talked. Bill Duke mentioned it in an interview years later. Other crew members confirmed it happened. Van Damme heard about it and felt vindicated. He'd been right all along. The stunt was dangerous. The suit made it worse. And the producers had ignored him. To this day, the production company denies the incident happened. But too many people saw it. Too many people were there. That stuntman's broken leg is the reason they redesigned how the Predator moves in later films. No more high jumps. No more acrobatic stunts. The creature became more grounded, more stalking, more animalistic. They learned the lesson the hard way. Van Damme was young, stubborn, and difficult to work with, but he was also right about that stunt, and he probably saved himself from a career-ending injury by refusing to do it. Sometimes being difficult is the smart move. Number 15. The Epic Handshake. Was improvised and became more famous than the movie. The single most iconic moment in Predator isn't the jungle hunt, the final fight, or the nuclear explosion. It's a 6-second handshake between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers that was completely improvised, and 30 years later it became one of the most famous memes on the internet. Here's how it happened. John McTiernan, the director, told Arnold and Carl to greet each other at the helicopter. He said, "You're old friends. You're both commandos. Do something masculine." Arnold and Carl looked at each other. They didn't rehearse anything. They just did it. Arnold grabbed Carl's hand. Carl grabbed Arnold's, and they locked into this intense arm-wrestling grip while flexing their biceps. The camera zoomed in on their bulging muscles. They held it for a few seconds, then let go. McTiernan loved it. He kept the take. Nobody thought about it again. The scene lasted 6 seconds in the movie. It was just a greeting. But then the internet happened. In the 2010s, that handshake became a meme. People called it the Epic Handshake, the Predator Handshake, or the Arm Wrestle Handshake. It got used in forums, reaction images, and YouTube videos. It became shorthand for two powerful people meeting with mutual respect. By 2018, the handshake was more famous than Predator itself. People who'd never seen the movie knew the handshake. It transcended the film. It became a cultural symbol for masculine camaraderie, mutual strength, and respect between rivals. Arnold and Carl both said in interviews that they had no idea it would become iconic. They just improvised something in the moment. Carl said, "We thought it looked cool. We didn't think people would remember it 30 years later." But they did. And now that 6-second handshake is more recognizable than most full movies. It's been parodied, referenced, and recreated thousands of times. It's in video games, comic books, TV shows. It's everywhere. The funniest part? Arnold and Carl didn't even grip each other's hands correctly. If you watch closely, their handshake wouldn't actually work in real life. Their thumbs are in the wrong position. But it looks so powerful on camera that nobody cares. It's all about the aesthetic. That improvised handshake is now a permanent part of pop culture. It's one of the most memorable moments in action movie history, and it happened because two actors decided to flex at each other for 6 seconds. Sometimes the best moments aren't planned. They're just instinct. Number 16. Stan Winston saved the movie in 5 weeks and created a Hollywood legend. When the studio saw the original Predator design, they panicked. The creature looked absurd. The movie was a disaster. They'd already fired Van Damme, wasted months of production time, and spent a fortune on a costume that looked like a rejected Power Rangers villain. They needed a miracle. They called Stan Winston. And Stan Winston delivered one of the greatest creature designs in film history in just 5 weeks. Stan Winston was already a legend. He'd worked on The Terminator, Aliens, and The Thing. He knew how to make creatures that looked real, felt dangerous, and terrified audiences. But he'd never had to fix a disaster this big in such a short time. The studio flew him to Mexico, showed him the footage, and said, "Can you save this?" Stan watched the dailies. He saw the bug-headed duck creature stumbling through the jungle. He turned to the producers and said, "You need to start over. This isn't fixable." They gave him 5 weeks and an emergency budget. Stan went back to Los Angeles and started sketching. He knew the Predator needed to look alien but believable. It needed to be humanoid enough to fight Arnold hand to hand, but inhuman enough to be terrifying. He based the design on African Maasai warriors, the elongated head, the tribal aesthetic, the sense of ritualistic honor. He added crab-like mandibles that opened sideways instead of up and down. He gave it dreadlocks made from rubber tubing. He added the biomechanical armor with the shoulder-mounted cannon. The design was brilliant. It looked like something that could actually exist, an alien warrior from a culture built on hunting and honor. It wasn't a monster. It was a soldier from another world. Stan Winston's team built the suit in record time. They sculpted the body, cast the latex, assembled the mechanics, painted every detail. They worked 20-hour days for 5 weeks straight. When they finished, they shipped it to Mexico and hoped it would work. Kevin Peter Hall put on the suit. The crew saw it for the first time. Everyone went silent. It looked incredible. John McTiernan walked up to Stan Winston and said, "You just saved this movie." He was right. Without Stan Winston's Predator design, the movie would have been a joke. Instead, it became a classic, and that design became so iconic that it's been used in every Predator movie since. 37 years later, they're still using Stan Winston's creature. Stan Winston died in 2008, but his Predator design is immortal. It's one of the greatest creature creations in cinema history, and it was made in 5 weeks under emergency conditions. That's the definition of genius under pressure. Number 17. John McTiernan created a shared universe. Before Marvel and nobody noticed. Predator, Die Hard, and Commando all take place in the same universe. Most people don't know this. But if you pay attention, John McTiernan left clues throughout his films that connect them all together. The key is Val Verde. It's a fictional country in Central America that appears in multiple McTiernan films. In Commando, Arnold's daughter gets kidnapped by mercenaries planning a coup in Val Verde. In Predator, Arnold's team is sent to Val Verde to rescue hostages. In Die Hard 2, the villain is a general from Val Verde. It's the same country, the same political instability, the same mercenary operations. McTiernan was building a shared universe 10 years before Marvel made it mainstream. But it goes deeper than that. There's a teddy bear with a red ribbon around its neck. It appears in Predator during the village massacre scene. That exact same teddy bear appears in Die Hard in the background of an airport shot. Same bear, same ribbon. It's an Easter egg connecting the movies. McTiernan has never officially confirmed this. He's been asked about it in interviews, and he always smiles and says, maybe, maybe not. But the evidence is there. The Val Verde connection isn't a coincidence. The teddy bear isn't a coincidence. He was deliberately linking his movies. Why would he do this? Because it makes the world feel bigger. If all of McTiernan's action movies take place in the same universe, it means the threats are connected. The mercenaries in Commando could be the same mercenaries hunting Arnold in Predator. The political coups could be part of a larger conspiracy. This was a radical idea in the 1980s. Studios didn't think about shared universes back then. Every movie was standalone. But McTiernan was ahead of his time. He was planting seeds that wouldn't fully grow for another 30 years. Marvel gets all the credit for creating the MCU, but John McTiernan was doing it first. He just did it quietly, without announcing it, without making it a marketing gimmick. He trusted the audience to notice. And most people didn't. But the people who did notice, they've been obsessed with it ever since. The Val Verde cinematic universe is real. It's just hidden. And John McTiernan is never going to officially confirm it because he likes keeping the mystery alive. That's the mark of a great filmmaker, leaving clues that people discover decades later. Number 18. The movie was filmed in chronological order, which never happens in Hollywood. Predator was filmed in story order, from start to finish chronologically, exactly as it appears on screen. This almost never happens in Hollywood, and there's a reason. It's insanely expensive and logistically difficult, but John McTiernan insisted on it, and it created real paranoia among the cast. Here's why filming chronologically is rare. Normally, you film all the scenes in one location at the same time, regardless of where they appear in the story. It's cheaper and faster. You set up the jungle camp once, film every scene that happens there, then move on. But McTiernan didn't do that. He wanted the actors to experience the story the same way the characters did. In the beginning, they're confident, joking around, relaxed. By the end, they're terrified and broken. If you film out of order, you lose that progression. The actors have to fake the emotional arc instead of living it. So McTiernan shot in order. Day 1 was the helicopter landing. Day 2 was the village massacre. Day 10 was the first Predator attack. Day 40 was the final showdown. The actors lived through the story in real time. This created genuine fear on set. Most actors read the full script and know what happens, but when you're filming chronologically, you're living in the moment. Jesse Ventura didn't know when his character would die. Shane Black didn't know when Hawkins would get killed. They knew it was coming, but they didn't know when. Carl Weathers said it made everyone paranoid. People would come to set and wonder, is today the day I die? Is this my last scene? It created this underlying tension that translated to the performances. The fear wasn't just acting. It was real uncertainty. Filming in order cost Fox an extra $3 million. They had to keep sets standing for weeks instead of striking them immediately. They had to schedule reshoots differently. They had to fly crew members back and forth multiple times. It was a logistical nightmare. But John McTiernan believed it was worth it. He said, "You can see the exhaustion on their faces. You can feel the fear building. That's not acting. That's real." He was right. The escalating dread in Predator feels genuine because the actors actually experienced it. They didn't have to pretend to be scared. They were living the story. And that's why the movie works. The paranoia isn't faked. It's baked into the production itself. Filming in chronological order is one of the most underrated creative decisions in Predator. It's the reason the movie feels different from other action films. The progression isn't artificial. It's lived. And audiences can feel the difference, even if they don't consciously realize why. Number 19. Arnold refused to die, so they rewrote the ending at the last minute. The original Predator script ended with Dutch dying in the nuclear explosion. He triggers the bomb, the Predator laughs, and they both get vaporized together. It was supposed to be a tragic, honorable death. Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "Absolutely not." Here's what happened. Arnold read the script, got to the ending, and called Joel Silver immediately. He said, "I'm not dying in this movie. Change it." Silver tried to explain. The ending was poetic. Dutch sacrifices himself to save humanity. It's a heroic death. Arnold didn't care. He said, "I don't die in my movies. I'm the hero. Heroes survive." Silver argued that it made the story more meaningful. Arnold said, "Find another way." So they rewrote the ending. Instead of Dutch dying in the explosion, he survives. He runs away, collapses in the mud, and gets rescued by a helicopter. It's a happy ending, and it feels tacked on because it was. They literally changed it days before filming that sequence. The helicopter rescue was a last-minute emergency idea. They needed a way to extract Dutch without killing him, so they wrote in a helicopter that shows up out of nowhere. There's no setup for it. It just appears. And audiences never questioned it because Arnold is such a huge star that of course he survives. But here's the interesting thing. Test audiences hated the original ending. When they screened early cuts with Dutch dying, people were angry. They'd spent 90 minutes watching him fight, and then he just dies. It felt unsatisfying. People wanted him to win, so Arnold's instinct was right. Killing the hero would have hurt the film. It would have felt nihilistic and bleak. Predator isn't a war movie or a tragedy. It's an action movie. Action movies need victories, not Pyrrhic sacrifices. The helicopter rescue became iconic in its own way. "Get to the chopper" is one of the most quoted lines from the movie. It's a meme. It's part of pop culture. None of that happens if Dutch dies in the explosion. Arnold's refusal to die changed the entire ending of Predator, and it made the movie better. He understood something the writers didn't. Audiences needed to see the hero survive. They needed catharsis, not tragedy. And Arnold knew his audience better than anyone. To this day, Arnold almost never dies in his movies. It's a rule he established early in his career. The hero survives, always. And Predator is the perfect example of why that rule works. Number 20. Critics destroyed it, but time proved them wrong. When Predator came out in June 1987, critics hated it. They called it dumb, violent, gratuitous, and pointless. Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote that it was grisly and dull. Barry Norman mocked it on British television. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars and said it was basically a monster movie. They were all wrong. Predator made $98 million at the global box office. It became a cultural phenomenon. It spawned sequels, comics, video games, and an entire franchise that's still going today. And critics eventually came around. In 2018, Rolling Stone ranked Predator as the 4th greatest action movie of all time, behind only Die Hard, Mad Max Fury Road, and The Terminator. Empire magazine called it a masterpiece of tension. The British Film Institute added it to their list of essential action cinema. So what changed? Why did critics hate it in 1987 but love it now? Because critics in the 1980s were biased against action movies. They saw them as mindless entertainment for teenagers. They didn't take them seriously as filmmaking. It didn't matter how well-crafted the suspense was, how innovative the creature design was, or how clever the script was if it had explosions and muscles. It wasn't real cinema, but audiences loved it. And over time, people started recognizing what Predator actually was: a brilliantly constructed thriller disguised as an action movie. The first half plays like a war film. The second half plays like Alien. The genre switches midway through, and it works perfectly. John McTiernan's direction was masterful. The way he builds tension, the way he uses the jungle as a character, the way he reveals the Predator slowly, it's textbook filmmaking. But critics in 1987 didn't care. They saw Arnold Schwarzenegger and immediately dismissed it. The same thing happened to Die Hard, Terminator 2, and Mad Max. Fury Road. Critics underestimated them because they were action movies. But decades later, those films are considered classics. Predator is now taught in film schools. It's studied for its pacing, its visual storytelling, and its creature design. It's on greatest films lists. It influenced an entire generation of filmmakers. And the critics who mocked it in 1987, most of them have since admitted they were wrong. The lesson here is simple. Critics don't decide what becomes a classic. Audiences do. Time does. And Predator has stood the test of time better than most serious films from 1987. Predator wasn't just an action movie. It was a battlefield of egos, accidents, disasters, and miracles. Jean-Claude Van Damme fainted, got fired, and smashed a costume on the ground. Arnold Schwarzenegger played mind games with tape measures and forced crew members to work out at 5 a.m. Sonny Landham had a bodyguard to protect people from him. Stan Winston saved the entire film in 5 weeks with one of the greatest creature designs ever made. And somehow, through all the chaos, they created a masterpiece. If you've never seen Predator, watch it. If you have seen it, watch it again, knowing everything that happened behind the scenes. Every explosion, every one-liner, every moment of tension. It's all built on real fear, real competition, and real chaos. This is what happens when you put the biggest egos in Hollywood in a jungle and tell them to make a movie. And 37 years later, we're still talking about it.